there's one scene where they're all jumping into the water, like it bursts into like some sort of a dungeon pool party. And at the 54-minute marker, King B and I watching, I stop, I look at the screen, and I swear you can see a woman swimming with like a dress shirt, no bottoms, and a clearly defined bush.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down to Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we ask, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday nights searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you even know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Gene Lyons. Alongside me is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And we're going to take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. Each week, the audience selects from 6 movie choices that we break out and watch the movie that tallied the highest number of votes. At the end of each podcast, Big D and I will provide the audience with the number of wipes each movie would take off our respective bums. So find a comfortable spot on the sofa and accompany us for a journey through our vast VHS movie collection. Again, you can download Shat the Movies via iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, or wherever fine podcasts are found. Big D, it's been forever since I've talked to you on this podcast. How you been, man?
Excited to be back here. I've been doing well. We've been pumping out 3 podcasts a week on Westworld. It's a lot of work, a lot of research, but we did not want to forget about all the listeners on Shat the Movies. So this week I said, can we try to squeeze one in? Kerry Gross is in Mexico. Roger is chasing the men's under 18 team across Europe. And I said, why don't we try to sneak in a movie here? And I have a friend locally who's been dying to get on the podcast for a while, who happens to have lived in China for some substantial time in the last couple of years for work. And he told me, he said, if you ever get a chance to get on, I'd love to do Big Trouble in Little China. So we decided to bring on Cole Pitcock tonight. So let me introduce him to you for the first time. Cole?
Pleasure to be here, gents. Looking forward to the conversation.
So not only am I excited about doing this, and welcome, Cole, but I'm glad you guys picked this one because the audience, as soon as they saw Big Trouble in Little China start showing up on social media with Shat the Movies, there was an overwhelming like, oh, hell yes notion. The reaction has been great so far this week.
Yeah, and I wanted to put a little bit of stress on Cole as the rookie here. And right as I posted it, and I could see that the tweets and the responses and the likes were going up, I sent him a screenshot, and I said, you better be on your game tonight.
Well, and let me just be clear here. I don't know if you guys have many Asian listeners or not, but I'm certainly not going to represent the culture stating that I'm an Asian of any kind. I've spent some significant time in China. I've got some stories, and I've thought what better way to bring some of those stories in with this podcast. Big Trouble in Little China is a classic, and it's stuck throughout many, many memories that I've had with some of my buddies growing up. So this should be fun.
If you've never seen Big Trouble in Little China, I recommend you watch it immediately before listening to this podcast because half of this stuff will not make any sense to you if you've never seen it before. But it is a quick 90 minutes. You can watch it, and it flies by. So anyway, to refresh your memories, Big Trouble in Little China is a 1986 American fantasy martial arts comedy directed by John Carpenter and starring Kurt Russell, Kim Cattrall, Dennis Dunn, and James Hong. The film tells the story of Jack Burton, who helps his friend Wang Chi rescue Wang's green-eyed fiancee, and by the way, she's green-eyed, from bandits in San Francisco's Chinatown. They go into the mysterious underworld beneath Chinatown, where they face an ancient sorcerer named David Lo Pan, who requires a woman with green eyes to marry him in order to release him from a centuries-old curse.
The only John Carpenter we've done so far is The Thing. Am I correct?
That's right.
Yeah, so I was thinking, this is so unlike a lot of Carpenter stuff. I was like, maybe this is early on. Maybe this was his 11th film. So I guess at this point, he just wanted to kind of let loose, have some fun, and do something very different from what he had done throughout his career.
And this movie was really the one that kind of made Carpenter take a step back from Hollywood. He was disillusioned with Hollywood after making it. It bombed in the box office, made $11 million in North America, and the budget was about $25 million, so it really stunk in theaters. Of course, developed a cult following after. And it has like an 82% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, So clearly it is a maybe a piece that was before its time, or people just didn't get it at the time.
No, I think as we go through this, we'll discuss. There were some issues in production, and with the studio, they didn't quite know. Like, what is this movie? If you try to describe it to people, it seems like it's a bit of everything. I remembered it very different than it was when I watched it again now. I thought it was an R-rated movie. I thought it was more violent and adult. So the studio didn't back it with promotion. That hurt it the opening week. And this was the same time as The Golden Child was coming out. So they lost that window. But once people got a chance to see it on VHS and DVD and now streaming, I mean, 82%. This is better than half of the big time box office successes we've done.
So, guys, all three of us have seen this movie before. I'd just like to take a second and kind of get some context of where you were the first time you saw this, what you remember about it. So, Cole, where were you when you first saw Big Trouble in Little China?
So I feel like my first time watching this was probably when I was about 10 or 11 years old. And it wasn't anything I think I sought to watch. It was just one of those, it came on TV and it caught my attention. I had a huge crush on Kim Cattrall, and I wanted to be Jack Burton. And I don't even think I'm embarrassed to say that today. I mean, he's a badass, right? Although watching it, I do remember it being a little bit more action-packed, and maybe it's because I was 10, and I really thought there was nudity in this movie. There was none of that.
Oh, I mean, you guys wanted more action out of this. This movie is action-packed, guys. Come on.
Yeah, let me rephrase that. I guess I thought there was like quality action, not 80s action. Okay.
Yeah, it's same for me. So like, this is one of those movies that you just remember. You remember, the Three Storms. You remember Jack. You remember the truck. You remember the Pork Chop Express. But in my mind, I thought it was like an R-rated, more realistic, gritty John Carpenter, make you want to shit your pants adventure in Chinatown. So I don't have a first memory. I was 12 years old when it came out. It was PG-13, so I probably should have seen it. But I don't know. I didn't see it in the theater, so it must have been, late night HBO when my parents went to sleep. But looking back now, I feel bad. I missed out on something.
Yeah, in watching it, I agree with you, Cole. Like, in watching this as an adult, I see Jack Burton. I'm like, I want to be that guy. And as a kid, they talk about if kids are impressionable or if they imitate things they see on screen. Dude, if I saw this as a child, that would be my persona probably through high school. I would want to be this guy. I wasn't really exposed to this. It wasn't like big in my friend circle. We had a lot of movies that we did watch like repeatedly, but somehow this kind of just slid under the radar. I think I was 6 when it came out, something like that. But when I was 27, I moved to Chicago, and something about this movie in Chicago, everybody I know in Chicago quotes this movie and worships this movie a lot, and along with Escape from New York. So like those are like just two cultural landmarks for that group of friends in Chicago. So after that, I watched it several times, but this was my first viewing sober. I watched it with the King Bee. We had a big Chinese feast and watched the whole thing, and I caught a lot of stuff that I missed when I was drunk.
Okay, so both you guys have said that you think he's the hero, you want to be him even to today. Do you not realize he's not the hero of the movie? He's the sidekick.
And I'm glad you bring that up, too, because people criticized this movie when it came out in 86, that they were saying that, a white guy has to go into Chinatown to solve their problems and save the day. And I was like, I never took it that way. I just thought he was cool. Like, he's a cool, it's like, yeah, but he's not, the story's not about him. He comes in and out of the frame, and he's not there to save Chinatown. He's just along for the adventure.
No, and here is a great John Carpenter quote from a retrospective that they did for I think it was the 30th anniversary. And he said, Jack is a character who doesn't know he's a sidekick. He thinks he's the hero of the story, but he's not. The character is such an idiot. He doesn't do much throughout the whole film in terms of being an actual action hero, which is very different from all the other action heroes that were out around the time. So, yeah, it was a very different movie. It was a bold take. And I'm glad that you and Cole don't mind being sidekicks.
So are you calling me Wang? Is that it?
Yes, you're Wang.
All right, Big D, let's jump right into this movie and take the audience to the trailer.
This is Jack Burton in the Pork Chop Express, and I'm talking to whoever's listening out there. It's a pretty amazing planet we live on here, and a man would have to be some kind of fool to think we're all alone in this universe.
There is a hidden world where ancient evil weaves a modern mystery.
What's going on here? Is this some kind of
magic?
the darkest magic. They call it Little China.
Finally, we shall bring order out of chaos.
It's where Big Trouble was waiting for Jack Burton.
Who? Jack Burton. Me.
Jack.
Jack?
Jack!
They told him to go to hell.
You make one move.
And that's just where he's going.
Somebody, I don't care who, tell me what is going on.
How are you gonna spring us?
I have no idea.
There are many mysteries, many unanswerable questions, even in a life as short as yours.
My destiny rests in your capable hands.
Hey, I'll do my best.
Oh God, is this really happening?
This is gonna take Cracker Jack timing, Wang. 1, 2, 3. We may be trapped.
Total concentration.
Safety. Yeah.
You ready, Jack?
I was born ready.
Way to go, Jack.
Jack Burton's coming to rescue your summer.
Hey, what more can a guy ask for?
20th Century Fox presents Kurt Russell in John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China.
All right, big talking rough and tumble truck driver Jack Burton, played by Kurt Russell, wins a bet with his restaurant owner friend Wang Chi, played by Dennis Dunn. To make sure he follows through on payment, Jack accompanies him to the airport to pick up Wang's Chinese fiancée, Miao Yin. A Chinese street gang, the Lords of Death, try to kidnap another Chinese girl at the airport who is being met by her friend Gracie Law, played by Kim Cattrall, intending to sell her as a sex slave. After Jack intervenes, they take Miao Yin by mistake.
So the movie lives and dies with Jack, from the way he dresses to the way he talks. So most of the listeners have not watched this movie in probably 20 years. So I can't do a good job of describing it. So I'm going to just start off with the movie's actual intro as Jack talks on the CB, and he lets us know everything we need to know about the character. And first of all, what about the music?
Sure, I've done karate in my bedroom to this as a child.
Exactly.
Or masturbated to 80s posters.
Yeah, karate.
Oh, they're
Jack Burton and the Pork Chop Express, and I'm talking to whoever's listening out there. Like I told my last wife, I says, honey, I never drive faster than I can see. Besides that, it's all in the reflexes. You just listen to the old Pork Chop Express and take his advice on a dark and stormy night, all right? When some wild-eyed, 8-foot-tall maniac grabs your neck, taps the back of your favorite head up against a barroom wall, and he looks you crooked in the eye, and he asks you if you've paid your dues. Well, you just stare that big sucker right back in the eye, and you remember what old Jack Burton always says at a time like that. Have you paid your dues, Jack? Yes, sir, the check is in the mail.
So that's unedited. That's the first 2 minutes of Jack, and he is absolutely amazing. Does anybody even respond to Jack? Is he just talking? I'm expecting the camera to pan down and the microphone wire is unplugged from the CB.
Well, I think the thing that blew me away is I'm listening to him and I look over at the King Bee and I go, is he supposed to be a John Wayne type guy? He goes, oh yeah. He goes, that is completely intentional. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. That he's just basically doing a John Wayne impersonation through the whole movie, but still, because he's Kurt Russell, it's cool.
Well, I think you're missing the most. You jumped the gun on this one. I mean, the opening scene wasn't even that what we just heard. It was Egg sitting in a lawyer's office telling him, leave Jack Burton alone. And it really didn't have anything to do with what we then went into next.
Yeah, and I found it a bit odd as well, that it didn't fit with the flow of the movie. And I learned after doing some research that was forced in by the studio, that they were a little worried, and it shows you the time. This was 86. There were people worried that the audiences in the United States would reject a hero that wasn't white. So they felt that after testing the movie, that the audience thought that Wang was the true. Is it Wang or Wong?
It's Wang, I think.
Yeah, it's Wang. He says Wang like a million times.
Yeah, so they were worried that American audiences would get upset that Wang was the true hero of the film. So they forced Carpenter to go back and shoot this opening scene where they make it clear that, stay away from Jack. He's the best. He's the hero. That wasn't in the original movie, and I think it does a little disjustice to the rest of the plot.
The only thing I thought of is, where's the sequel? After I watched it a second time, then I thought, well, you know what? Maybe there's something to us, but I don't think so.
Well, finally we get Jack. We see where he's going. He's driving into Chinatown. He's dropping off, obviously, I think some pork products, have to be in his truck. And he pulls into Chinatown. It's the Chinatown market. And all I could think of was wondering how authentic this is. So Cole, as the truck pulls in, we see some interesting sidewalk vendors selling different animals, foods. How authentic does this look to China?
Well, so I can't say I've ever played poker in the streets of China, but it's really all about the food. I don't know that they highlighted that enough, but you literally walk up and down the streets and see live chickens getting their heads chopped off. And you see every bit of animal or repulsive reptile being skinned and grilled and ready to be put on a stick. So I thought they could have highlighted that a little bit more, but I guess it could come across kind of rough.
Now, are these just hanging out there in the middle of the street? Is there any kind of...
Oh, no doubt. There's blood dripping everywhere. There's more blood from the streets in a real market than there was in any bit of this movie. Let's put it that way.
What boggled my mind, though, is that as you're getting these very detailed shot of this different world of the Chinese market, you have the obvious metaphor of the giant semi truck like rolling through there. And that was like my big focus in this initial part of the movie was I couldn't get over the fact that I was like, what the hell is he doing driving a semi truck to the airport, like through city traffic, like through alleyways? But then I started realizing like this is like a big American dick, right? Like this is like this is the overpowering American badassery looking ridiculous, like completely out of its element. And it was such a great it's such a great metaphor for Jack just showing up like, hey, with that swagger. And again, it's just this movie would not, like, every piece of it makes sense in the way that it doesn't make sense.
No, and he has no clue. He is oblivious. When he's in the airport and he's trying to flirt with Gracie, she tells him, hey, stand downwind. Any other guy who found out that they just reeked so bad would back off. Jack doubles down and he just tries continuously. And I'm wondering if Carpenter was making some kind of a commentary on American culture and as opposed to the ancient Chinese ways, but he is a typical American meathead and he's glorious.
Wait, so go back to the smell. Who smelled? Did he smell?
Jack smelled. Jack is flirting with Gracie and she says something like, ooh.
Now, do you think that was about Jack? Because I will say China has its own unique smell to it. And it's one that you don't wish you could take back with you. In certain places, it's something unlike anything else. So could it have been all the Chinese people standing in the airport that she was surrounded by this stench?
Could have been. Or maybe there was something in that box that they were carrying off the airport, but I hadn't even thought of that.
I mean, there definitely could have been something in the box. There was no airport security at all. Like, you had people bringing in firearms, like melee weapons. A gang walks into the airport, and I kept thinking, like, now you see cops at the airport with assault rifles. Back then, it was just like, it just had like a flimsy glass door to walk in, and there's just baggage claim right there.
No, it looked like some kind of cheesy nightclub. When the gang pulls out their nunchucks and they start fighting, everyone getting their bags just circles up. It was like a dance-off. Everyone just accepted it until the guns come out and then they start shooting people. I would have expected to see this on the news, but pre-9/11 airports were very different.
I had to go back and watch that twice. I mean, the guy's white sunglasses or whatever the hell they were, those alone just should have had him get arrested,
Well, I mean, they arrested for wearing like the most racist sunglasses in history. Like, were they supposed to be shaped like Asian eyes? Like, what was the point of that?
Exactly.
This whole gang was like straight out of Ninja Turtles, and I just remembered like when we watched Ninja Turtles, and Roger was like, "Oh, it's so gritty. It's just so gritty and real." And I was like, "This gang," Roger would be like, they're so gritty." Roger needs to start like choreographing gang scenes for like Broadway shows. Like that's his idea of what gangs look like.
After watching this movie, the first, about halfway through these opening scenes, I started to realize why Roger really loved Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I shit on him. And granted, I don't think a 0 is a fair score that he gave it. But I couldn't understand why Roger enjoyed it so much. And this movie, I think, explains it. This might be my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Instead of looking at, does the action seem realistic? Do the characters make sense? Is the plot logical? I just had to sit back and realize this movie was just meant to be a comedic action. It's like a more adult Goonies. And sitting back and watching it that way, I had a true appreciation for this. And not that I wouldn't give Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles a 5. I can kind of see where Roger was coming from.
So next, Jack and Wang track the Lords of Death to the back alleys of Chinatown, where they find a funeral procession that quickly erupts into a turf war between the Chang Sing and the Wing Kong, two ancient Chinese societies. When the three storms, thunder, rain, and lightning, mighty warriors with weather-themed powers appear, slaughtering the Chang Sing, Jack attempts to run his big rig through the crowd, but runs over David Lo Pan, a decrepit man directing the three storms. Horrified, Jack exits his truck but finds Lo Pan unfazed and glowing with magic. Wang hurriedly guides Jack through the alleys, and the two escape the carnage and mayhem, but Jack's truck is stolen.
Okay, so this opening battle, I'm going to call it epic. Okay, it's epic for this movie. It's not Braveheart. It's not, when you go back and look at it, it's not going to win any awards. But it starts off with a gun battle, then goes down to some kung fu and swords. There's dozens killed, but not a drop of blood.
And I'll go back to my days when they peel down this alley. There's nothing else going on until these bozos come around the corner with the casket, I guess, right? I don't ever remember stumbling across anything like this in China. You're seeing more children defecating, shitting, and pissing on the sidewalks as you're walking by. Children working in these sweatshops outside of streets. And, your occasional old man with a monkey trying to get 10 RMB for a picture with the monkey. I missed all these processions when I was in China.
Well, hold on. I want to go back to that, okay? There was no blood in the streets, but you've told the story before that in China, it's okay to drop your pants.
No doubt.
Lay out some card. No,
drop. You can drop trow. If you're really classy, you'll maybe pull out some styrofoam from the trash can that's right next to you, take a shit on it, and then fold it back up and put it in. I've literally seen children shitting and grown men pissing in parks, on streets, and nobody looks a second glance.
Yeah, but hearing that makes sense why, the war here between the Chang Sing and the Wing Kong, it doesn't seem to raise an eyebrow. If they're used to it.
Yeah, see, if I was Jack Burton, just maybe get out of that big rig and take a hot steamer right in between these two and see how the war goes after that,
Well, what's weird, though, is that conflicts directly with how tidy they are about this fight, because I noticed during watching this, there were 4 distinct phases to Chinese gang war. So first they start off with, I'm going to call it the archers, right? So everyone pulls out their automatic weapons, pistols, shotguns, whatever. They shoot at each other for a while. Then they clean up. They actually take the bodies out of the street. Yeah. Then they begin the melee part of the combat. And then finally the magic kind of closes and rounds out the end. But I found the cleanup to be the most interesting. They took them a second. They got all the bodies out of the street. And then they got out their pole arms and started attacking each other.
Dude, but what the fuck? There's one random guy with a Tommy gun from the 1940s. He's a gangster. I was like, where did that come from? But you're talking about the key phases of gang war. I want to talk about what I learned about the martial arts. I don't think you need to truly know how to fight. You just have to get a wide spread stance, crouch down a bit, take repeated long, deep breaths, then scream and start doing some kind of violent hand motions, like you're kind of shoving an imaginary friend away, and people won't know whether you can fight or not.
It's also the key to goth clubbing. But what I don't understand in all this though is the movie's set up with Jack and Wang. They're gambling. Wang owes him money. Jack doesn't trust him, so he sticks with him. And suddenly, it's a buddy cop movie. Like they're friends all of a sudden. They're diehard, inseparable wingmen. I don't get this transition.
But I thought so you're saying these guys didn't have a history, a recent history? I thought they were buddies from way back. Maybe I missed that.
I mean, history enough where he doesn't trust him.
Yeah, I mean, the reason he's going with him is to get his gambling debt. But it was only like $175, wasn't it?
No, it's a couple of G's.
It was over 1,000.
Okay. So that makes sense that he wants to go with him. But I'm sorry, at the point of a gangland battle, you got Lo Pan disappearing and levitating through your truck, shooting lightning out of his eyes. I'm not going to follow you into this. It's not worth it for me. What's in it? But, let's go with the flow again. Don't think too much. They're buddies and they're going to go through it. And I wonder if some of that mess came about because of the rewrites to make Jack more of the hero, that maybe an original cut of it made more sense where we could say that Wang is the hero and Jack is the sidekick. But you mentioned when the three storms come in, is there anything more iconic than those three guys and Lo Pan in this initial fight?
No, I mean, all three of them were badass. They looked amazing, like when they fly in, and I was like, oh, cool. Like I'd forgotten how cool it looked, and it's cheesy, it's 80s, whatever, but it looks cool. And I was on board until I saw Lightning's weapons. Like he's got like spinning fork hands or something. Like they lost me there. I was like, what is he supposed to do with these?
See, here, my take on it is I got to get me a set of those rings. I thought they were badass.
No, what about the back scratchers?
Exactly.
Those are the ones that got me. But as much as we laugh at it, I was a Mortal Kombat guy, right? I'm sure you guys played the video game. Came out in 92, and it was put out by, I think it was Midway Games. And they claim in the story of Mortal Kombat that Raiden is based on the Japanese thunder god, Raiden Sama or Rainji. But that's horseshit. Okay, hold on. I butchered that. What was that? What do you think?
Raijin.
Raijin. Yeah.
Okay, Raijin. That's why we have the expert here. But Jack Burton is Johnny Cage. He drives a truck. Wang is Liu Kang. Lo Pan is Shang Tsung. How did Midway Games not get sued for these characters?
I honestly don't know if video games were like that far in the forefront of pop culture at the time, where like Mortal Kombat was a big deal to us as kids, and then I think as it grew with the whole fatalities thing, then people caught on. But they probably, movies were so much bigger than video games at the time. Now they've kind of gone a little bit of a parallel. I think they were fine.
So my biggest takeaway from that whole scene is when they wrapped up toward the end. If I'm Jack Burton and I see some guy's eyeballs start to glare lasers out of his eyes and mouth, I'm going to look too. So what happens? Jack gets blinded. And what happens next? He runs over into a really dirty street puddle that I think Wang splashes water into his eyes, and suddenly he can see again. So the lesson, kids, here is if you ever get blinded, just find some dirty street water and your vision will come back.
Or what a dick Wang is. You couldn't have gone off like
what
to
a
a spigot.
dick Wang is. That's exactly
to a spigot and splash some clean water. I'm not, Gene. If you ever get blinded by Lo Pan, I'm going to find some clean water for you.
The thing is that this is really Wang's opportunity to just run. Like you owe a guy a couple G's. You're trying to find your girlfriend or your fiance. He's blinded. Take off, man. But I think I think it speaks to the camaraderie among people. And I wanted to ask you guys, the Chang Sing, their little gang sign they do with the hand. I shit you not. I'm watching this movie over at King B's, and they do it on screen, and my hand just shoots forward like involuntarily, and I throw it back at the screen like, hell yeah. Did you guys have that moment?
No, I didn't watch this as a kid.
No, but I noticed what you're talking about, and they do it multiple times in there, but during that fight scene, it seems to mean something that I couldn't quite get to, but net, yeah, it was the cool thing to do.
Yeah, it seemed like it was some sort of a signal for a coordinated attack that never happened.
Is that like throw somebody through this shitty window really quick? I mean, it could have been many things. So,
all right. So Wang takes Jack back to his restaurant where they meet up with Gracie, her journalist friend Margot, Wang's friend Eddie Lee, and magician Egg Shen, a local authority on mysticism and Lopan. They try to explain to an incredulous Jack, who only wants his truck back, the ancient knowledge and sorcery the Chinese brought with them to America. The group devises a plan to infiltrate a brothel where they believe Miao Yin is held. They break in with some difficulty, but are interrupted by the storms tearing off the ceiling and making off with Miao Yin, taking her to their master Lo Pan. Jack and Wang track down the front business used by Lo Pan and impersonate electricians to gain access, but are quickly subdued by rain. After being tied up and beaten by thunder, the two meet Lo Pan. However, he now appears as a crippled old man.
Okay, so the movie is, I'm still trying to figure out at this point as I'm watching it. What is it? It's an action comedy. There's some balance there. Now, they start introducing topics that I don't know go well with comedy, like sex slaves and forced prostitution. And in your opinion, what is the balance here between comedy, action? Where do you think it falls?
I think it's intended to be action all the way, but Jack Burton just has that underlining one-liner, one after another, that adds in the comedy element.
I mean, I treat this movie a lot like, it reminded me a lot of Goonies, in the sense that the action is there to keep the pace moving, to keep the blood pumping, to keep the fun in it. But overall, they're trying to make you laugh. And what I really love about it, though, is, and few movies do this perfectly, but the jokes come fast enough and are inserted surgically enough that it doesn't interrupt the action, right? They don't like stop the action to do something. So there's a lot of like things that are said under the breath. And then, of course, you just have like goofy ass things exploding and lighting up. And the wire work for the storms, it's like, it's cool and exciting, but also hilarious.
Oh, come on. The way that when they're taking off, he actually looks like he's grabbing on to the lightning bolt, like it's the wire, and it lifts him up. I thought that was glorious, as bad as that was. And there are so many things in this movie that are bad. From the plastic knife that Jack carries around in his mouth as he's crawling around the lair. I think all that stuff actually made the movie more endearing to me. I'm glad it wasn't polished.
So those monsters didn't look real to you later in the film?
Cracked out Chewbacca? No. But in this Asian brothel, I know it's a serious topic, but Cole, in all of your time in China, did you partake, did you become friends with any working women or some ladies of the night? Any fun stories, maybe if you didn't, in the Asian clubs that you could share with us?
Well, I can't say I exactly portrayed myself as Henry Swanson, but you don't have to go far to find some lovely Chinese women wanting to take you out for the rest of the night. And you know, they're all over the place and they're beautiful women. So you at least strike up conversations with them all over the place. I can't say I've went all the way, but
what's the average cost for an entertaining evening? I'm asking for Roger.
Yeah, it's. I don't know that Raj could afford some of the girls that he'd want to talk to, but you go to the right place. I guess there's someone for everything, You know what it reminded me of, and there are two differences here. But you know about the tea scams in China, right?
No.
So the tea scams are basically when these women, and there's different variations to them, but it's basically when women will draw you in and get you drunk or do whatever it takes to get you to start to spend more money. And they'll woo you into a place. Could be a karaoke bar, a K-bar, something like that. They'll leave the room and in comes a couple guys. They'll ask for your credit card or cash, and they're not going to let you leave until you pay them up. And it's actually still very common over there. And let's just say I have a close friend maybe that's experienced it, and it's no joke.
But so you're in a club, you're with the lady, you think you're having fun. And then all of a sudden, some of Lo Pan's men come in, and if you don't pay, would they actually hurt you?
They could rough you up, no doubt. And you've heard stories of people that have been killed. You've heard others that are just talking shit and they just want to get money and they'll let you go. But they see a guaylo, they see a white guy, they're going to try and take advantage of you, especially when you're drunk because you're stupid and you've probably got money.
It's not just limited to China either. This actually was very common in the UK when I was studying over there, like in '99. The strip clubs over there were it was kind of the same thing, but they would charge a fee for talking to you that guys didn't know about. So you go into the club and the dancer would come down like they do here in the States, and they'd sit down and they start talking to you, and then they after 15-20 minutes they'd be like, okay, I need to get paid now. And if you didn't pay, they'd have a couple guys come and kind of surround you and take you to a room and have a talk with you. and try to extort that money that way. So stay in America, guys. If you're looking for sex workers who treat you fair, stay in America.
It's all about the buddy system. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, got to work together.
So I do have a question about this brothel, though. I'm not really experienced with Asian brothels, but is there typically a Mrs. O'Toole working at the Asian brothel? I was confused by this name and, in fact, several names in the movie. I just feel like everybody in the movie needed to be renamed. It was very distracting. Gracie Law is the lawyer.
Yes.
And I don't know why she needs to be a lawyer, because that doesn't seem to come into play at any point in the movie, but whatever. Then Mrs. O'Toole is like, I don't know, what is she, like the secretary of she's not the madam. She's like the cashier.
She's Irish.
Clearly. And then my favorite though was Eddie. So the friend Eddie who they meet at the restaurant, and Chet's like, that guy's a Jeff. Like Jeff is the Asian guy who sounds like the whitest guy alive. Like, did you notice his voice? He was like, well, hello, everyone.
Yeah, I thought he was like, what is it in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? The Charlton, what's his name? Carlton?
Yeah.
Carlton.
Yeah. Eddie was the Carlton. Hi, guys. How you doing? It's great to see you.
He was the whitest Asian guy I've ever seen, with some of the most jacked up fashion statements and suits as well.
And then I felt like he had a counterpart on the other side, on the evil side of the spectrum, where Thunder looked like a Larry. He also kind of had that weird side part thing. Like those guys were just like, but I like that. I like that they showed a variety of Asian looks.
Yeah, but at this point in the movie, I think we start to see how the plot in the movie will be structured. And all I kept thinking about is, this is a video game. This is like I'm playing Castlevania. The movie starts off, they introduce us to the characters. We then enter a level. We have to make it to the end. We beat the boss. Then we get a little bit of cutaway storytelling. Then we come back next level. We beat a boss. Don't ask why there's a spider, a flying eyeball, nothing. Don't ask why there's an elevator in the brothel that takes them downstairs into the water. Just start the level, hope you make it to the end alive, and then just start the next one.
So we've talked about the plot. We've talked about how it's a video game. We've talked about character names. I just want to take a minute to appreciate, to worship at the altar that is Lo Pan. Like Lo Pan, like Jack is the irrefutable one-liner king in this movie, but Lo Pan is a real strong contender. And I figured it out. I decoded what it is that he does. He takes contemporary dialect and then throws it into like these 2,000-year-old like vernacular, and gets it, like he'll say things like he says to Jack, "I'm not concerned if you get it." Like, what? And then he's talking about his friend showing up, and he's like, "This pisses me off to no end." Like, and I think it's just the dichotomy of seeing this old man in the wheelchair, and again with great makeup, just creepy. Kind of looks like his skin will just peel off if you even touch him. And then mixing that up with just he's just like kind of a crabby, snarky shithead. I don't know. To me, favorite character of the movie by far.
Oh, without a doubt. He's played by an actor, Jack Hong, who you've known him from a lot of things. He's in the Kung Fu Panda movies. He was in Blade Runner. He's fantastic. He is a 2,000-year-old Asian Yoda. The way he talks,
yes,
the smart ass, he's great. And the special effects, as much we'll get into as, the cracked out Chewbacca looked terrible. The simple effects that they use with him, from the light out of his mouth to when he's glowing hands, I thought it worked. He's iconic. You show anybody a picture of Lo Pan, and they got to know what it is.
And I thought that he actually, for being an 80s film, the cosmetic to make him look like the old man actually wasn't so terrible. I mean, I expected it to be a lot cheesier, but it was all right. And his voice, I didn't know if I was supposed to laugh or if I was supposed to take him serious, but this was like the father of Mr. Chow from The Hangover. Like, I just kept thinking of Mr. Chow in the Hangover films, but this guy nailed the role.
So Wang tells Jack that Lo Pan needs a special green-eyed girl to break an ancient curse, and he intends to sacrifice Miao Yin. Centuries ago, Lo Pan, a great warrior and even greater wizard, was defeated in battle by the first sovereign emperor, Qi Shi Huang. The emperor cursed Lo Pan with incorporeality, although Lo Pan can be temporarily granted a decrepit body by supplication to the gods. He must marry a woman with green eyes to appease Qing Dai, the god of the East, and sacrifice her to satisfy the emperor. When Jack and Wang's friends attempt to save them, they are also captured, and Lo Pan notes that Gracie has green eyes too. Lo Pan decides to sacrifice Gracie while making Miao Yin his unwilling wife. After getting the drop on Thunder, Jack and Wang escape and free many women kept in holding cells in the process. A horrible orangutan-like monster recaptures Gracie before she leaves.
Yeah, so I honestly, before watching this movie and researching, I didn't think green eyes were that unique, but it's actually only 2% of the population naturally have green eyes. Did you know that?
And an even smaller percentage have eyes like milky jade.
I think it was actually creamy jade, according to Wang, right?
So fucking creepy.
Like creamy jade. Like, what was he? That was really creepy.
So are we led to believe, is it maybe there's only 2% that have green eyes because Lo Pan's been killing them for 2,000 years?
No, I mean, that's the thing is, like, he can't just find one in the world. He had to have another guy bring her in. Does he just, I mean, I guess it's pre-internet, so that explains things.
No, it's because they have to be able to survive the wedding ceremony, the burning blades. They have to be able to survive that. And I guess most green-eyed women just cuts the fingers.
Wasn't the whole shtick at the airport, though, that the gang members got the wrong girl? Didn't they get Miao Ling or whatever her name was by mistake?
Yeah, so basically they were just there to kidnap a chick and take her as a sex slave, but then Miao Yin accidentally got kidnapped apparently, and then they were like, and I didn't catch that part of the airport scene at all until I read this plot synopsis, and I was like, oh, there was another chick there?
Because the other chick was just your average Asian with black eyes. She didn't have green eyes, so maybe that was a plot screw up.
Yeah, but I kept thinking, because they show her a couple times, like hidden, secluded in a back room of the restaurant. I thought at the end it was going to be that she was the actual chosen one, and she was going to come flying in with some superpowers and do battle with Lo Pan. But no, they just tossed her to the side. She was just some random sex worker being imported.
You want to talk about secret superpowers? What the fuck is with Wang all of a sudden discovering he knows how to fight?
That motherfucker, he's been holding back since the beginning. That whole battle in the street, Jack, they're going to get killed, and now he decides to reveal that he's Bruce Lee.
Yeah, we talk about the fact that they got the drop on Thunder. That's how they escaped. So these guys are captured. They're in these lovely wheelchairs tied up. And, of course, they didn't search Jack for his boot knife. And at this point, again, we're thinking Jack is their only hope. He's the only one who can fight in this, I guess. And, of course, by the way, anytime you capture a guy with knee-high boots, check the boot. There's going to be a knife in there. It's the only reason you would have it. But I was kind of confused by the fact that they were so bad at holding hostages, both the women and Jack.
Gene, I got to interrupt you. I mean, those wheelchairs, we got to talk about them for a second. These like nice wicker wheelchairs that just borderline looked good. If I was ever taken hostage, again, and I say again, Big D knows what I'm talking about. Korn concert, a whole nother story, hit your head, all that nonsense. I want to be transported around in these wheelchairs. It just didn't look to fit the mold of this whole playground that they were in, but I thought they were pretty badass.
Yeah, if I'm going to be strapped loosely with some twine to a wheelchair, they looked like antiques. I bet those things are worth money. They're probably in King B's house right now, and he's using them to watch TV.
Oh, he's just using them to hold things. He just has stuff on them.
Or people.
He's probably got 6 bug out bags sitting on top of a fucking wheelchair. And can someone explain to me? So then they fight Thunder. Jack gets him at knife point, loses it, gets back at knife point, and then he inflates, and then that throws Jack down the hall.
You remember, it goes back to my first lesson of Kung Fu. Wide stance, deep breath, scream. That's step 2. Deep breath. It will throw off somebody who's not trained. But we can't gloss over his outfits because he's ridiculous. He is the only man who can pull off a mullet. Kurt Russell is the man I would want to be. He's rugged. He's good looking. He's funny. He can pull off any haircut. But those boots, did that go too far? Or the acid wash jeans with the tank top tucked in?
But the boots served so many purposes. I mean, how many knives did he had stowed away in those things? And I couldn't tell, were they buttons? Were they straps? Were they, what were they made up of? But they didn't bother me. But I'd never wear those boots. But if that's what it takes to be Jack Burton, you wear boots.
Uh-huh.
So we've talked about the boots and somehow not talked about the orangutan monster.
Where did that come from? That just seemed like they talked themselves, okay, they're escaping. We need them somehow to get grabbed again. and they went and said, do we have any kind of monster or creation back in the storage room that we just put on screen?
This feels like one of those, maybe that monster was created for another Carpenter film. Exactly. That the budget got cut and they said, screw it, we already spent $25,000 on this stupid ass thing. Put it in your other film. Because it served no real purpose in my mind for this movie.
Yeah, I think, though, we're asking a little too much here. Do we expect to see a monster we recognize? Like, it's kind of like they're just like, make a monster, man. And they did. And kudos to them for being original.
No, but hold on. This monster has access to the exit and the entrance of the lobby. Is he a friendly monster? Is there an intelligence? Like, does he just randomly steal people from the lobby with like the little eye holes? This wasn't like the Rancor. You had him chained up downstairs. He walks around and maybe he's a member of the gang.
I feel he's just misunderstood. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, talk about being misunderstood. They get back to the bus. They now have all these undocumented sex workers. Out comes the gang and shoots up the bus. How are you going to explain that to the police?
Are we talking about what appeared to be a bulletproof bus? Because do you remember all the rounds of ammunition they were firing off and maybe a few windows cracked? That was about it. I mean, why did nobody get hit with a bullet in through the side of the bus?
Yeah, the if you had a couple dead sex workers, the gravity of the situation might have got us more invested.
I mean, it all goes back to Egg in my mind. Like, Egg is just the ultimate dude, buddy that everybody needs to have and rely on. Like, I want an Egg. I don't have an Egg in my life. I need an Egg.
I'm amazed that you guys are, again, I think we're on two different pages on this movie. You guys are examining the bus. I'm examining the escaping sex slaves there. There's one scene where they're all jumping into the water, like it bursts into like some sort of a dungeon pool party. And at the 54-minute marker, King B and I watching, I stop. I look at the screen and I swear you can see a woman swimming with like a dress shirt, no bottoms, and a clearly defined bush. King B was like, no, it's sheer panties in a shadow. I posted on Twitter. You can look at Gene_Lyons_. That is bush. You guys be the judge. Let me know what you think.
No, and I kept expecting there to be some breasts, some murder. And then I remembered it's a PG-13, but they're using every single trope. How many times do we see sewer escape scenes and it's crystal clear water? Not only are they swimming there elegantly and I guess these sex workers were Olympic divers in a previous life because they just head first dive, beautiful form, enter the water. And then there's no place more romantic to have your first kiss for Gracie and Jack than submerged in raw sewage.
Well, I totally missed Bushgate altogether, but I couldn't get over the fact that how everybody can hold their breath as long as they can either. I would have been a dead duck, no problem in there. But when you come up for air, what's the first thing you want to do? Grab a chick and make out with her, right?
Well, especially if it's sewage filled with skeletons. Like it's really the only thing you can do.
It's an aphrodisiac. It's like rhino horn.
All right, so Wang and Jack regroup with the Cheng Sing and Egg Shen, and as a group they enter the underground cavern to return to Lo Pan's headquarters. Egg pours each of the group a potent potion that Jack says makes him feel, quote, kind of invincible. The group interrupts the wedding ceremony, which breaks out into a battle. Jack accidentally knocks himself out by shooting a piece of the ceiling that falls on his head, and promptly is trapped under a suit of armor when he comes to. Wang kills Rain in a sword duel, while Jack and Gracie chase the newly alive Lo Pan. Wang joins them, and just when all seems lost, Jack kills Lo Pan with a skillful knife throw. Thunder, who had been distracted with Wang, reappears and, furious at finding Lo Pan dead, explodes.
So I think we've all experimented with some mind-altering drugs. Am I right there?
Some egg juice, yeah.
Yeah. What was that? Was there a scene that got cut that explains it? Because that elevator scene gets bizarre. They're feeling brave, they're invincible, but they start looking around, making eyes at each other. Jack mentions it's getting hot in here. Was that ecstasy? What did they take?
There was a lot of touchy-feely stuff going on in that elevator. It was kind of about 5 seconds too long of an awkward scene.
Oh, see, that was my favorite scene in the entire movie. Like, just they're giving each other like messages of affirmation. Like, I thought it was
they're rubbing each other's shoulders.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And what's really funny is I went online to see if, what other people thought of it. Because for King B and I, this is the epitome of this movie. And there's a lot of mixed reviews there, but people go from calling it glorious to like hella gay. And I don't know, which to me is kind of the same thing, but I don't know. To me, it was the movie elevating itself to another level of clever, where it was just this moment where everything paused and got quiet, and you just had this kind of cute moment that was altogether homoerotic and confidence building, and I don't know. It was like I imagine that this is how D-Day would have gone if D-Day was invading the bowels of Chinatown.
And they're giving each other looks like, "Hey, how you doing?" And they're like looking at us, the audience, and that's what makes it great. It is fantastic. But they finally make it to the battle, and Jack again shows us how useless he is as a warrior. He gets hit by the rock in the head. He gets stuck under the warrior. Jack never ceases to let us down.
Yeah, and again, we're seeing why Jack works here. It's a lot like the Indiana Jones character, where you've got this bravado mixed with kind of always getting lucky and sometimes getting unlucky, but finding a way out of a situation. And again, that irreverence is what really makes this movie work. I was loving that clash of the East and the West in this movie. And there's that scene where they're checking out the wall, and he's like, "Hollow?" and just cuts right through it. Like, that's great, these little discoveries. And then for me, there was that Slimer moment, which was also magical with the Guardian that shows up, and it's this, incredibly complex, bizarre floating creature that has like a dozen green eyes. I'm like, why doesn't Lopan just marry the Guardian and call it a day? Like, clearly it's super magical, right?
And he's got a hell of a tongue too.
Yeah, but as much as it looks kind of laughable today, that floating eye, the Guardian, took over 60 artists and engineers to get it to work, and it cost over $100,000 for what, maybe 30 seconds on screen? Between that, the wall spider monster that grabs that one dude until the Egg throws the exploding marble at him, random monsters in this movie. Do we think it added to it, or was it just a waste of budget?
I mean, it reminded me a lot of The Thing, where you just had these permutations of different monsters. And I think that's a John Carpenter kind of a staple there. It took it to somewhere other than just a martial arts movie, and I think that was important. A lot of the effects were beloved because they're so 1986, right? The lightning, the explosions, like it really worked for me. I liked seeing these things, just like I liked the ghosts and Ghostbusters. They had a special look to them that you don't see anymore with CGI.
Yeah, but this room, what is it normally used for, where this battle's taking place? Is this a goth club? What do they do here normally? Because there's like an escalator.
Well, it's got a banging escalator. That's all I know.
And neon that accents all of the statues and the walls. If this isn't a club, it needs to be one.
Yeah, there was a goth club in San Francisco called Camera Obscura that kind of looked like that, because it was like during the week, because as all goth clubs are, during the week it was like called like the Copacabana or some shit, or Tampa's or something, and it had like neon palm trees and shit. But then one night a week you make it a goth club, you just kind of tone down the palm trees a little bit. It was either that or like a Thai wedding chapel. I'm not exactly sure what the hell is going on there, but the whole place gets destroyed by Egg, whose main ability is like launching things that explode, but he can't aim for shit.
No, and I think this is the scene where the movie really won my heart. It does go towards campy, but they really embrace the ridiculousness of the fighting. It looks like the scene in the Blues Brothers where they're in the church and all the congregation is doing these massive backflips. That's not possible. I think Wang runs up the wall over the arch. The exploding marbles, that crazy neon like VR warrior battle between Lopan and Egg that looked like, I know if Roger was here, he'd say it was like Star Wars or Spaceballs, but they embraced the ridiculousness. And for that, I fell even more in love with the movie.
Well, and this also was the only time that apparently the Carpenter and the gang embraced blood, because if you remember, Lopan was using his needle of love to ingest into Ming's arm, when really he had those crazy coke nails that were doing the same thing. So I didn't really understand the needle of love when he had these coke nails that were just getting the blood that he needed to suck on to become human.
So I've decoded this one, Cole. So this is the way it works, is the needle, when he pressed it against her skin, he bled. So that was phase one, is he's got to draw his own blood by pressing the needle of love into his bride, That's the needle of love. Then Gracie is the sacrifice, so he can just cut her and suck her blood. I think that's what they were trying to do. I think I'm thinking about it too much, but that's my interpretation of what was happening there. But the movie is so self-aware, though, Big D. You mentioned that they look like they're on wires flying around and everything. At one point when they're in the, when he's wearing the kimono earlier in the movie, Jack straight up says, he's like, I was attacked by these guys on wires. Like, it's like, he's calling it out exactly what it looks like.
Half of the fights looked like the guys were laying on their side on those creepers like mechanics use. And they were just rolling across the floor next to each other, punching each other. But it works. No matter how bad the effects were, when thunder explodes.
Oh, that was one of my favorite parts. The first time I watched this film when I was a kid, it was my favorite because I think that's what scarred me the most. What made me think this film is awesome. It was just the weirdest thing I'd ever seen in a movie at that time. And all those feelings came back, and I felt just as awkward when I watched it again.
Well, for me, what was weird about it, though, is I thought Thunder turned into something. So, like, he was, like, getting all bloated up, and I'm like, all right. And then there's the big explosion. They run out, and I go, all right. And I'm waiting for something to come running down the hall. I look over at King B. I go, okay, so what does he turn into? And he's like, no, he just exploded. That's
he exploded because I think his life force and his existence was based upon the power of Lopan. So once Lopan was killed by that hell of a knife catch and turn around and throw, at that point, well, here's my question. Why did thunder explode, but still lightning and rain is out there?
Yeah.
What was that about?
I think Thunder was so emotionally devastated that he blew up. But you mentioned the knife throw where Lopan dies too, and I was like, wait a minute. I thought he's like, nice knife, and then he didn't try to kill Jack with it, it seemed like. He didn't like throw it in like a overly aggressive manner. It looked like he was just tossing it back to him. Like, did Jack just kill him for no reason?
That would be an ironic twist to this movie. He could have. He didn't seem
to see it coming at all.
No, it was like, hey, here it comes. Hey, Jack. And catches it, turns around. Jack's a fucking shithead. Maybe that was it. Maybe he was trying to make friends, and Jack just killed this 2,000-year-old man for no reason.
Yeah. I mean, it's like going to the shooting range. It's, you show somebody your handgun, and they're like, oh, that's really nice. And they hand it back to you, and you shoot them. What the fuck? And Jack threw the knife at him in the first place. So it's like if a guy shot at you first. I don't know. Anyway.
It goes back to Jack's fault.
So Jack, Wang, Gracie, and Miao Yin are cornered by lightning in a corridor, who triggers a collapse with his powers. Egg rescues them with a rope and kills Lightning by dropping a stone Buddha statue on him when he tries to follow. After finding Jack's truck and dealing with the remaining Wing Kong guards, the group bursts out and escapes back to Wang's restaurant. They celebrate their victory in the restaurant with the rescued women. Wang and Miao prepare to marry, while Eddie pairs with Margot. Egg sets off on a long-due vacation. Jack suggests his homeland, but Egg says that China is in the heart. Jack, though attracted to Gracie, turns down an offer to stay and begins trucking again, not wanting to be tied down. Unbeknownst to him, the orangutan-like monster, Crack Chewbacca, survived the battle in the labyrinth and is stowed away on his truck.
Okay, so this is where we get to we've had spider monsters, flying eyeballs, 2,000-year-old demigods. We've had flying warriors with lightning. I'll take all that, but there is no way that Jack, a trucker, does not leave without having sex with Gracie. Am I right?
No doubt. I couldn't agree more. I was really shocked when I saw this again because my memory of this movie was Jack leaving with the girl. It didn't make any sense to me.
No, she was willing to get a truck with like a cabin with a sleeper and go on the road with him. Why would Jack turn this down? That's against his character.
Well, no, actually, earlier in the movie, they say that she's not his type because she has brains. He likes dumb bimbos.
She has brains?
She's a lawyer. She's Gracie Law.
Oh, my God. I hate Kim Cattrall. I hate her.
Yeah, but she was great in Porky's.
Oh. No, she's terrible.
I think Margot was the one. If it weren't for Eddie, she would have went running after him. I think she was the dirty one. All the innuendo she was making to Eddie in that room.
Yeah, she wanted to sleep with Eddie, and she's wearing some acid wash, like large, oversized vest. She was the one that Jack should have gone with. That would have been a good match.
So out of the three storms, though, thunder was just garbage there. But with lightning and rain, like, who were any of them supposed to be tough to beat? Like, what was that all about?
I don't want to sound racist, but after a while, I couldn't tell them apart. I didn't know which.
Oh my god!
I no. As far as the powers, not the actors. I knew you're a dick. I knew the actors, of course, because Thunder was.
Wait, how would powers be racist?
Because you could say the actor, the character, like Thunder was a bigger dude. He's the one who's doing the whole dance routine, before they do the burning blades
with like the leopard print.
Right, like so the long haired of the three storms. Which guy was that?
It was the Asian one.
The long haired guy. Seriously,
you racist.
Was that Rain?
Long hair was Rain. Yeah.
Okay.
Thunder had the really long neck. I'm sorry. Lightning had the really long neck.
Lightning was
and the spoon hands.
Okay.
Black Lightning.
Okay. So Lightning, he's the one down at the hall, and as everyone's escaping, instead of trying to go and kill them, he just stands there showing off in the hall. That's right. He's shooting the lightning. So that was him. That was Lightning. And then he gets a boot.
Yeah, see how that works?
Like, oh, you're such a dick.
And how about that? How about the exit though? I was really wondering throughout the movie, like, why the semi truck? I mean, I knew that it was symbolic and all that stuff, but I was like, why does he need this truck? Why isn't he doing like a Burt Reynolds and driving like a Camaro or some shit? And then you find out because you need room enough for all the sex slaves.
Did either of you see the alternate ending that they filmed?
I didn't know they had another ending.
Yeah, so there's an alternate ending of about 2 minutes where before they get back to the restaurant at the end and Jack kind of hauling ass and somebody in the cab yells, "The light's red," and the truck skids. And that's when Wang starts making out with his fiancee.
Yeah, that was a good makeout sesh.
Immediately following that, Jack looks up and he sees it was like a Firebird from the airport kidnapping. It drives by right in front of them with the three members of the Wing Kong, the guy with the sunglasses.
Mm-hmm.
Jack says, "No, I can't do this," or something to the fact. He drives the truck, tracks them down to the waterfront, and crashes into the Firebird and pushes them into the water, killing them. And then he says, "Now I feel better." And they go back to the restaurant and have dinner.
Yeah, that actually makes sense because in the garage scene, when they first tear off with the car and almost run him over, Jack delivers this great line. I was just like, yeah. He just goes, "Son of a bitch must pay." So that was his payback. It makes perfect sense. It brings the movie full circle.
Yeah, I mean, Jack's one-liners made this movie. I mean, it's like, start printing the t-shirts. It's, what would Jack Burton do? He'd say, "What the hell?" I mean, there's too many of these things. I think we got a 6.9 on the Richter scale. I mean, you can go on and on and on, but without Kurt Russell, this movie's nothing.
Okay, you people, sit tight, hold the fort, and keep the home fires burning. And if we're not back by dawn, call the president.
It's amazing.
Kurt Russell is the man. Jack is the man.
So before closing out, we got to talk about the elephant in the room, right? Which is the treatment this movie gives Chinese culture and Chinese American culture. And after watching all this, and I think, Cole, you could probably help us with this, I can't tell, is this movie celebrating Chinese lore or is it just exploiting Chinese tropes? It's actually listed on Complex.com's 50 most racist movies at number 48, but I didn't necessarily feel that way, but I could be missing something. And I think it's because I'm not familiar enough with Chinese American culture to know, is this an offensive movie?
I don't know that I'd say it's offensive, but it's total exploitation. I mean, I thought that I actually remembered this movie taking place some in China, not in Chinatown, in the US. And now looking back on it and watching this film a couple times in the last week, it's not so much that it's making a joke out of anything. It's just really fucking cheesy is what it comes down to.
Yeah, I don't think the intent was to exploit the culture, because if you watch the behind the scenes, their misguided attempt was to honor the centuries of they had experts on scene. They went out of their way to hire Asian American actors because their knowledge of the lore and the history of the culture and the mysticism and even the arts that they brought in for the fight scenes. So it wasn't their intent. Is it pretty bad? I don't think it's as bad as I expected. I was ready to cringe, expecting the characters, to have intentionally bad English or to use stereotype catchphrases. If anyone could be upset, they make most of the Americans and the American culture look like a bunch of idiots. So you got to remember, in the end, Wang is the honorable hero, and the American dumb white guy, the idiot John Wayne. If anyone could be upset, it should be everybody, because this movie divvies out insults. It seems like fairly across the board.
But I don't think they went over the top. I thought that they were good enough, stereotypical, your dumb white guy. Mm-hmm. Chinese traditions in the U.S., it's not the same as actually in China. So all in all, I was surprised to see that this made that list. I wouldn't refer to this movie as racist at all.
Also, I think it's important to note that there's literally like 2 white people in this whole movie. So I think to a degree, I mean, that's not a full indicator, but when you have a cast that is overwhelmingly Asian, maybe the guy in the orangutan suit was white too, I don't know. But when you've got a cast like that, I think it really helps in the fact that it's hard to see them executing on some sort of a racist agenda or an exploitative agenda when you have that much of the cast, that percentage of the cast being Asian themselves.
I'm ready for a reboot. That's all I kept thinking at the end of this movie. I want them to redo this movie.
No. They are doing it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think The Rock is playing Jack.
See, it's going to be such a different movie watching experience, but I think it'd be interesting to see what they do today, 30 some odd years later. Sign me up.
No, you're not going to be able to do this movie as schlocky as they did here. It's going to be the equivalent of Baywatch. It's going to be one of these dumb movies that they try to because if you reenact these fight scenes as campy as they did, the audience today won't accept it as just fun. They're going to want it to be gritty and real, like all the new Batman. And if
Ninja Turtles.
If you do that with this movie and this material, you take all the fun out. It's going to be a dark movie. I don't know that that's right for The Rock, and I don't want to see that. This to me is one of those you leave alone. You can't improve it. It only worked in '86 with this cast. Nobody but Kurt Russell should ever play Jack.
Sounds to me like you guys are ready to rate this movie. So we pull out the Shat meter again. The way we rate these movies on a scale of 0 to 5, 0 wipes being a completely clean movie. It is the crystal blue waters of a Chinatown sewer, and 5 wipes would be basically the gunk that is caught under Lopan's coke nail. Cole, let's start with you as the guest on the show. What is your rating for Big Trouble in Little China?
I'm going to have to go with 1.5 wipes, Gene. I mean, I really wanted to stay with 1. I think the half really goes into what I thought I was going to see when I rewatched this. I thought it was going to be a little bit more gritty, and I know you're laughing at that. And I thought there was going to be a little bit of nudity. I thought maybe Kim Cattrall in her golden age, I was going to see a little something that I missed from my younger years. But overall, great movie, good flick. It's even better the second, the third, the fourth time you watch it. And 1.5 wipes would be my fun.
All right, thanks, Cole. Big D?
Shockingly, I was expecting to come into this with very low expectations. And after the first half of our first watch, I really felt lost. I felt like it was just a bad action flick. And then it clicked and I got it. And upon subsequent watches, I loved it more and more and more and realized that they were laughing along with us. This is a movie that could only exist, I said it before, in 1986 with this cast. They were young. They were having fun. They were trying something new. I don't know this works at any other time. So we always ask, does the movie hold up? No, because it can't. You couldn't do this today. But for what it was trying to do, to have some fun action adventure, and they wanted you to have a good time and leave the movie smiling. This movie, much like The Big Lebowski, at the end I was happy. I had watched something entertaining. I really felt like the people who worked on the film enjoyed it. So surprisingly, I got to give it a 2 wipe. I think it's better than average.
Well, I agree with you on all those points, Big D. This movie probably would not work in 2018, and it doesn't always make sense. There are parts of it that you're just like, what the hell is even happening? But I liken it to Goonies in that you can drop in at any time and find something to love about the scene. Like, you could have no idea what's going on, turn the TV on, and if this movie's on, there's something cool happening on screen, right? So for me, that is something that you just don't see anymore. You turn on a Transformers or something brainless like that today, and you don't give a shit. Or if you put something really complex on, you don't have the background to understand it. And in this, you don't need any of that. You just need to watch what's going on the screen and enjoy it. The whole thing, as you said, Big D, it just feels so fun. Like, everybody seems to be having a good time in making this movie. They're almost joyfully fighting in the streets. So I really love that. And the only complaint I have is that it seems to be dragged down a little bit by too much mystical lore. They really slow down the action a couple times to tell us these stories that I don't think anybody really gives a shit about. And you could have really left that part out and just kind of, again, at a 90-minute movie, it's already at a quick pace, but you could have used those moments for, some more action scenes, some more gags, whatever. I just think that that's the only thing I wanted to see a little bit more of, or just more dialogue that introduces you to more about the characters, some interesting backstory or something like that. So for me, though, I surprisingly came in the highest of the three. Big D, you had 2 wipes. Cole's at 1 point.
Well, I'm going to change it. I think a 1.5 because thinking about how iconic the movie is. You have the 3 storms. You have Lopan. You have Jack. This could have easily gone badly and been forgotten. To be an 82 on Rotten Tomatoes today and this iconic, I think a 1.5 is fair. I want to adjust that.
You're here to the cause, Big D. And with my 1 wipe score, that gives us an average between the 3 of us of 1.3 repeating for Big Trouble in Little China.
Okay, so that puts us now, this is movie number 72 that we've done. And the 1.33 puts it tied in the 17 spot with. When I say some of these movies, people are they're gonna fucking lose their minds. It is now tied at the 17 spot with The Breakfast Club, Shawshank Redemption, The Blues Brothers, The Matrix, and Braveheart.
When I think of classic flicks, I think of Braveheart and Big Trouble in Little China.
Absolutely.
It is one of those, and people are going to go, how the hell is this the same as Shawshank Redemption? They're not the same. You're never going to find movies that are necessarily comparable. You're comparing them to what's in a similar genre and a similar structure. This movie is so unique. It almost doesn't have a comparable movie or comparable movie, but it still is lingering in the culture. And from the response we got on social media, it is clearly beloved today as much as it was when it came out.
Well, I'm ready to go get blitzed on some of Egg's potion. I don't know about you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling really confident, guys.
It's getting warm in here.
I'm seeing things.
Yeah, you guys look great. I think we're going to do well tonight.
I feel positive.
So speaking of positivity, I'd like to give some shout outs. Basically, if you'd like to hear your name on the podcast, go to shatthemovies.com. Find any spot on there that says get a shout out, put your name in there, and we'll read it on the podcast. Just going to do a few tonight, and we'll get some more in on the next episode. Shout outs today go out to Brian Caldwell, Chris Williams, Carol Wags, Tyler, Milan and Noopy from Swindon, UK, Big Hairy Balls, Big Wrong Donkson, Moxie and Beefcake, The Silent Jester, and Bruno. Thanks everyone for listening and getting your shout outs. Again, if you'd like to hear your name on the podcast, go to shatthemovies.com where you see all of our past movies. You can vote for upcoming movies, and which Big Deal explain in a second, and also get your name in for a shout out.
Yeah, and we normally at this point, mention what our movie is for next week. You already know it. It's going to be Terminator 1 when we return back from our hiatus at Westworld. Tonight is airing of episode 8, so we have 3 or 4 weeks left until we'll release a new movie. So I thought at the end here what I would do is leave you with the audio version of the video that John Carpenter did all the music and score for this movie. So I'm going to leave you with the audio version of the theme song Big Trouble in Little China with John Carpenter on the vocals and the Coupe de Villes backing him up.
All right, that concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. Facebook, search for Shat the Movies Podcast. The website is shatthemovies.com. Our email address is host@shatthemovies.com. If you have a suggestion for a movie category and nominees for that category, please write us at host@shatthemovies.com, and we will take it into consideration. Wherever fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop by iTunes, please leave a kind review. That helps the podcast grow. Also, you can check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we're currently covering Westworld. We also do Taboo, American Gods, and Game of Thrones. You can find all that information out on the website, shatontv.com. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert, Roger Roper, and Carrie Gross, I'm Gene Lyons. Thank you for listening, and we'd like to extend a very special thank you to our special guest, Cole Picock.
Gene, Big D, pleasure's been mine, fellas.
Thank you, Cole, and be sure to listen to us next time when we review Terminator, the original.
You can